Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, and my name's Jenetta Barry, and our show today is part of the Talking Heads episodes. I'm one of many experts that appear on this channel as a talking head, and today I'm an expert presenter. I'm going to be talking about handling the stories we run about ourselves, we run about others, and situations. And I thought I'd start off first by saying, have you noticed often when you're feeling very emotionally charged about something or someone, or even about yourself, where you feel you either not good enough about something, or there's a lot of internal criticism going on? Have you noticed how that story gets really, really big, and suddenly you're adding stories to that story? And then when you've calmed down and come through that story or those stories, and you look at it objectively again from a distance and see the bigger picture of that story, you go, but it was nothing like that. I mean, I have done that so many times in my life. I reckon I've probably lost quite a few friendships from it, and I've definitely lost quite a few opportunities as I've either run a story that I'm not good enough, or incomplete, or I'm all sorts of things that stops me from expressing my true wise self in many, many situations. And also a situation that presents itself where I run a story that's happened because of this, and because they said this and they did that, or this happened and prevented that, or whatever. And then I've looked at it afterwards and gone, but it wasn't anything like that. So for those of you today who identify with having done that, and I reckon we've all done it in some time or another in our lives, then I invite you to sit down, actually relax, take a deep breath. And in fact, that's the first thing I would like to do with you today, is to get you into that frame of being, not just mind, but of being, when we're not doing and we're human being. That frame of being changes everything to begin with. And so the first thing I'm going to say is, let's sit down and enjoy ourselves today. Not get too cerebral about this. I am going to be giving you some very basic exercises towards the end, but in the meantime, let's start with getting into that place of going, let's enjoy ourselves as we see where it is that we've taken ourselves very seriously, or taken a situation very seriously, or taken other people more seriously than in actuality needed to have been. And the first thing is about bringing oxygen into our bodies. I always say to my clients when I'm with them and they're feeling very stressed, when you're feeling stressed and you've got no energy, what is it you need to do to re-energize yourself? So they'll say things like sleep and eat and drink and exercise and all those things. But usually, and this is 99% of the time, breath isn't even mentioned. And I'm going to say to you, how long does it take? Have you heard of anybody who doesn't sleep dying? No. No, it's usually complications of not sleeping that makes them feel compromised, and perhaps their health or whatever. How long does it take to die if you don't eat? Well, it's a month on average. And if you don't eat and drink, it's a few days. If you don't drink anything, and of course, dependent on the weather conditions. But how long does it take to die if you don't breathe? And it's minutes. So our breath is the very essence of our being. And so the first thing I'm going to give you to be able to sit down today and enjoy yourself with me is breath. And we're going to do what we call box breath. We're going to breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out through your mouth for 4, and hold for 4. And we're going to do that 3 times. That's how we're starting this program out today. So are you ready? I'm going to guide you. So Gently breathe in and hold. And breathe out through your mouth. Hold. And breathe in again. Stay. Release through your mouth gently. Keep it there. And another breath. Let it all out. And now breathe normally. I call that my natural sleeping pill, by the way. When I can't sleep, I use that box breath for 3, and then I breathe normally, and then I do it again, and I breathe normally, and I do it again, and I do it however many times is needed, and then I wake up the next morning going, oh, it worked. So this is a good way, and I can already feel the vibration around me just coming into that place of manageability as we talk about those feelings and thoughts that we run in our heads about ourselves, how we often judge what others are saying or doing or not saying and doing, and how we judge a situation as it has happened or happening. And these often come from childhood patterns that we are running as adults, something that happened back then, some way we did or didn't manage to handle that particular situation or that person or that way we felt about ourselves. So that often the way we handled it then becomes the truth of what happened, when in actual fact, many factors would have happened that, because we were feeling emotionally attached and perhaps overthinking about it at the time as well, blocks, blinds, and distorts us from seeing every facet of what happened, including what did work in that situation. We're so often focused on what didn't work. That's what we're going to work on today. And I've dealt with people with family feuds and relationship feuds that have been started from the assumptions made according to past experience. You know, there was somebody similar in the past who said that, did that, so therefore that's what that person is saying and doing. And because they've said similar words, that's who they are. They're the same type of person. And then when you stop and work this process with what is and isn't within that situation, and suddenly it doesn't matter what the person said 300 years ago, it's nothing to do with what you're dealing with the person you're with now. I even had one client who'd had, by way of example, a partner, a business partner, who had swindled him in a time past. Then he forgave him without working out or through the anger issues. He buried those anger issues and brought the partner back, and the same thing happened again. And that put him into roaring lion mode. And what we were able to do was to see that first of all, the two situations were separate. And secondly, to understand where what he was identifying as unacceptable in that person had its acceptances as well, where he had done very similar in the past, and but maybe in a different form or different forms, so it didn't feel like the same. And when he was able to do that and understand what this business partner was giving him as much as taking away from him, suddenly, and he had his wife with him in this session, suddenly his voice dropped, his anger dropped, and he was in this place of acceptance. But he was saying, but he even though I accept this, what do I do about it? And we were able to do more. And then his wife pointed out to him, do you know that your voice has changed? And yet the situation was still the same situation. But his whole approach and perception to what did and didn't happen and what was acceptable and wasn't acceptable had changed. In other words, he changed himself. And he went back and had a very powerful conversation with this person. They didn't work together again. But what it helped him to do was to attract the type of partner into his life for business purposes that complemented who he was and the type of business he does. And that's what we're going to look at, is how to deal with situations and see them in a new light and feel them in a new light, embrace them in a new light, and own them in a new light. So I thought we'd start off, because we've got situations, we've got people, and we've got ourselves. Let's start with situations to begin with. Now, there's a situation perhaps that's from the past. You can either use a past situation that's still irking you, or something that's challenging you right now. And there's the story, you know, this has happened and it shouldn't have happened, and it's all because they or it and the parameters weren't put into place, and I got let down by say an institution or a group of people or whatever. And there's this whole story of what didn't work. And this is not saying that that story isn't valid, because there are aspects to that story that are valid and require to be heard and understood and acknowledged. But now you're going to get a piece of paper and start writing out the opposite story. In other words, the story you wish had happened. If this had been an ideal situation, this person would have come forward and done this and been that. And then this institution would have backed me here. And then this, and write out the story, the right story. And I'm doing it for this for reasons that you will get just now, what the right story is. And then you would then go with that right story. What would not have worked? Because we're going, the wrong story is all wrong, and if only it had gone right. So I go backwards and forwards when I work this on myself. In the wrong story having happened and having to deal with it, the fallout, the loss, yes, it's there. But what has it given me the opportunity to do and to be, that if that right story that I've just written out had played out, would have been denied to me? So an example would be, maybe it got you to start researching more, to get more information on how to do it in a different way. Maybe it pushed you to think outside the box and new ways of making what you have to want to work in a new way. So maybe it got your researching skills fine-honed, or to start doing researching skills when it wasn't really a big thing for you. Maybe your judgment skills, your discernment. Start working out what qualities the not working story has been able to give you, and either start using for the first time or fine-honing like never ever before. What did, in it not working, did it push you to do physically? Maybe it made you start reading more when reading isn't a big thing, or maybe it got you to meditate more. Or I had one person who started doing more gym work, and he was quite overweight, and he suddenly found that gym work made him feel trim and vibrant and more energized, as he just firmed up his muscles, and he went, but if that hadn't happened, I would still be feeling slovenly. So see what it's done for you physically. So we've done what it's done for you with your mental skills, your physical skills. Who or what did it push you to turn to talk to differently or spend time with more because that didn't work? It might be your family, it might be your friends, it might be colleagues. Who or what did you spend more quality time with because this didn't work? Because if it had worked, you wouldn't have had the time to do that with. And suddenly you find that you're having meaningful conversations with perhaps a parent and running past what didn't work, and suddenly they're coming back with some advice for you. And you feeling closer to that parent or that sibling or that friend because you're sharing what didn't work. Whereas if it had all gone brilliantly well, you'd be missing that conversation with them. So start doing that. See where you started trusting more. I find when I'm incredibly challenged, that's when I turn to what I call grand orderly design. And I start going, okay, I'm going to bring in light, and I start using all my techniques to work with the universe. Whereas if everything had gone right, I would have tended to have left the universe out of it, or marginalized it, because I always believe in it, that it's not just me making things happen, but just becoming that more faithful and trusting of myself, the universe, and the world at large. That if it had gone really, really well, I wouldn't have had the chance to practice that little bit more. What's it pushed you to do financially, either to learn new ways to save or new ways to spend it with a more open heart, or how you feel about finances and money. So what's this challenge pushing you to do that works with money? And then, of course, also, what's it pushing you to do with your work differently, that if it had all gone according to plan, would be missing out on the new plans you're now making? So often, I went on honeymoon a few weeks ago, and there was we were at an island that is slowly disappearing because the lakes of East Africa are rising inexplicably. They don't know why. They think it's the tectonic plates shifting, and this water is coming from underground. This island's disappearing. So instead of having 50 guests, it can now only have 18. And I listened to the owner saying her house disappeared underwater, and it gave her the opportunity. At first, she was devastated. She'd put all her savings into this island, and then she was able to get the insurance money and rebuild the house higher up the island, and it's a much better house. So it's being able to see, but it's not just the intellectual, it's also how it feels different for you. And that's what these questions will help you to do. And you're going to do the same. And by the way, when you do that, when you start seeing where there's equal amount of gain as there is loss, the more you can do that, the more your heart will open. And you'll start saying, okay, I can understand, as much as I wanted this project to work this way, I can now embrace and understand and accept the value of it not. And then that will help you in the next thing that you are wanting, the next situation you're wanting to create, whether it's at home or whether it's with your family or with your work or with your friends. The next situation you want to create from an open-hearted place will have both those lists. And when you've got both those lists of this is what will happen if this doesn't happen, and this will be what will happen if this does happen, what happens is when you start bringing those lists more and more together, whether it does or doesn't happen has equal amount of gain as it has loss in it. So it doesn't matter which way it goes. And that is how, by the way, I've ended up in this most beautiful, beautiful place in East Africa that we're living for some time of the year, my husband and I, because we did just that. And we manifested it in the most amazing way because we had open hearts, allowing whatever happens in that situation to bring itself to us. And it has. And that is how you can deal with situations. If this feels a little bit daunting as you start out, I'd be delighted to help you more with it, because there are extra questions as I go into my intuitive side and help you to not just do that, but ask extra questions that are deep inside you that I can feel are there and hidden, and bring out to open your heart even more. They're questions that help you to bring balance. They're not questions that make you feel uncomfortable. So do feel free to talk to me about how to expand on your situation and bring out exactly what you want to bring out in a situation, or to balance a past situation that's irking you. You'll never look back. So the next thing we'll go on to is number 2, which is what to do when it's about other people. You know, he said, they oughtn't to have, how dare they, I feel so put upon. All those judgment statements we have about a situation that a person or a group of people may have brought to you. And we all have them, because all of us are dancing a dance from our past experiences. So when we get somebody who's dancing their dance from their past experience, we're dancing ours. Most of the time with this process, I can handle it, but I still have to, at times, to go away and process more on myself about that situation. And this is how you're going to do it. First of all, you're going to write out what you wished was happening, like you did in the last one. So I wish that this had happened. I wish that the person hadn't taken exception, or I wish that the person hadn't taken advantage of me, or I wish that the person had been more respectful, or I wish that the person had been more thoughtful. Whatever it is that you're feeling, there's a bunch of traits that you've listed somewhere inside yourself. How dare they be like that towards me? And you're going to write out what you wished was happening, first of all. I wish that this had happened, and this, and this, and this, and this, so that both stories are given the time of day. And then you're going to also start listing what would be missing if that story had played out the way it has. What did it enable you to do, or to be, or to take action on, because it didn't go the way you had planned? And then you're going to start on top of that. So there's all those areas. What did it push you to believe in and trust in more? What did it push you to do mentally? What mental skills did it push you to employ? It could be reasoning, negotiation, all sorts of different skills that mentally come in. What did it push you to do physically? Maybe it got you knitting, so that you're putting all your thought process into knitting, and it brought this beautiful physical piece of knitting out. Whatever it is. What did it push you to do with your family? Maybe pushed you to talk to somebody, or socially. What did it push you to do financially that served you, and within your work, your life purpose? So you're going to start doing that. Then you're going to start listing what traits that I was just saying about that you perceived they portrayed that you disliked and despised. You're going to list that, and then you're going to choose the one that you liked or despised the most, and you're going to start seeing where you have portrayed the same trait, because all traits and qualities are human. We all portray them at some time or another, in some form, and in the same way as that person or persons, or in different forms. But we all do it because it's part of being human, and it's very natural. We start identifying where we have portrayed those traits too, either in the same form to the same degree, or in different forms to the same degree. When we can start listing where we've done it throughout our lives, from our earliest memory. I remember somebody criticizing me not so long ago. Okay, so when have I criticized in the same form or in different forms? All the time I'm doing it. I'm being critical on a silent level all the time. We're doing it all the time, because that's part of discernment, by the way. So you're going to start putting, oh yeah, I was critical of that. Yeah, I was critical. And where in there criticizing me, what did it push me to do? Well, it pushed me to go, well, what of that was true or valid? It perhaps maybe my defense mechanism. Oh, you can't say that about me. It pushed me to be less defensive. There's a whole list that you start putting together. And then where have you been critical of others? What's it done for them? And when you can start seeing that criticism is as much a part of your life as the other person that criticized you, and I'm using criticism as an example, then your heart opens. Now, again, it can be quite tricky to do this because I call this mental and emotional gym. And if you'd like some help with this, I've helped thousands of people all over the world to do this process very, very successfully. It would be an honor and pleasure to do it as well with you and help you through those difficult times. And then very last of all, self-judgment. You're going to do exactly the same as before. What is it you're judging about yourself that you dislike or despise? And get the one you dislike the most. And then start listing where you have equally portrayed its opposite trait. So because we've done both equally, when you do that, you'll start seeing that as much as you are the thing you are judging yourself as being, you're equally the opposite. And when you can start owning that, you start being less judgmental towards the side that you judged and more accepting. Then again, ask yourself, in being judgmental of whatever it is, that trait, and disliking that trait, what's it push you to do? What's it enabled you to become? And when you can start doing that, you'll start finding yourself easing up. And again, it's not always easy. It's like going to gym. I'd love to take you to mental and emotional gym and be your gym coach. Please do feel free to step forward and talk to me more about how to do this. But yeah, at the end of the day, I want to say to you that so much of this is doable when you put your mind to it and say, I am going to do this. And it depends how much you feel at pain, feeling at loggerheads within yourself and the world at large. And to end off, I would like to invite you to subscribe to this channel if you're not already subscribed to it. Please feel free to look. Our Talking Heads 2022 is on YouTube. Subscribe. We've got many, many authorities on different subjects in this channel. And I would also like to invite you to contact me at Jenetta@theepiphanyprocess.com if you'd like to hear more, or visit my website at theepiphanyprocess.com. I do offer a free introductory session with you so that we can get to know each other. And it would be an honor and pleasure to work with you and expand more on these internal limiting conversations. And with that, I send you lots of love. Bye.